With a lot of seniors, unfortunately, Alan, our drivers can be the only one that senior really sees all week. There's a lot of isolation, there's a lot of loneliness, and for our driver to be able to show up, come in the home, and break up that monotony for 5 or 10 minutes, it's a godsend. We went from about $1.5 million in revenue last year in our corporate operation to just over $4 million in revenue this year.
Welcome to the Franchise Champion Show. I'm Alan Regala, former G1 athlete, Stanford engineer, and franchise owner who built a multi-million-dollar exit. I created the show to help driven professionals like you find the right franchise opportunity and build real wealth. My guest today spent over 3 decades inside one of the most recognizable franchise systems in America. He's seen it all: private equity, leadership, turnover, and the full arc of a franchise brand from scrappy startup to corporate machine. When it was time for a change, he chose something with a mission. He's now Senior Director of Franchise Development for Heart to Home Meals, a concept that's quietly been building a track record overseas for decades and is just now gaining serious traction in the US. Rick Peroe, welcome to the Franchise Champion Show.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to join you today. I think we've got a lot of exciting things to cover and talk about, and just looking forward to being your guest.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm excited to have you here and got a lot of questions for you. I'm excited about this brand and excited about learning more. So take us back to the start, Rick. How did you get into franchising?
That's a long story, but I'll be real quick. I was a young kid coming out of college and ended up meeting a young lady that had an opportunity to do a little bit of travel. And it was a 3-month gig with a company, Jackson Hewitt Tax Service. We only had about 20 offices. And at the end of 3 months, at the end of the tax season, my job was over with. And they said, Rick, we think you can sell franchises. And I thought, I don't have another job, and it's going to take about 3 weeks to about 3 months to figure out I can't do that, and I'm going to find another job. So it really, like most people, it was just by accident. But Alan, it's probably been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Starting with a young company like Jackson Hewitt and able to see it grow through various stages. I was blessed. I was lucky enough to be able to be on the development side of it. I transitioned into more of an operations role of it to support franchisees and just really learned that I loved entrepreneurs, helping them start their dreams, helping them grow their businesses and really expanding. So 30 years later, as they say, it was history. And so I'm really looking forward to it. When I joined the other company, I knew every franchisee. I knew their spouses, I knew their kids. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity here at Heart to Home Meals. We're really just getting kicked off and getting started. And we're truly drawn to the franchise because of the mission, being able to help others. There are so many franchise systems that you can choose out there these days. There's a franchise system for everybody. But really what resonated with me was the industry and the opportunity to help our seniors.
Okay. Well, let's hear about that. I guess tell us first what Heart to Home Meals is, and then I would love to hear how you got into it, how you found it.
Absolutely. Well, Heart to Home Meals, we look like a brand new company, but we truly aren't. The company itself, Appetita, was our parent company. They're based out of Rhine, Germany, and they're a global food producer, is what they are. They do about $1.2 billion in revenue a year, and they serve over 1.3 million people a day. So as much as it looks brand new, it's not. The company itself is about 40 year company that really has been, involved in franchising and food production. Actually, its roots go back to about 1958 in the United Kingdom, where they started Wilshire Farm Foods. And Wilshire Farm Foods really, was the catalyst of what started things here in the U.S. It was a home-based delivery food business. So Appetita, the parent company, we have about 7 different countries that we operate in. In Germany, believe it or not, the school-age children is probably one of our biggest segments. In Amsterdam, we provide foods to private sectors as well as, commercial B2B type sales with hospitals, nursing homes, and things of that nature. So it really has been a company that's growing. And in the United Kingdom and in Europe, the company itself has seen a lot of growth, but they really saw North America being as a true opportunity to come in and see large growth. And they've started franchising in Canada, and that's really how they got here to the U.S.
Okay. Okay. So take a step back for a little bit, because you mentioned, a few different things, food production, back in Europe, and sounds like you work with like schools and, other facilities and other places like that. And then, so how did it go? Is that all part of a franchise as well, or is that separate? And then I guess I'm just curious to see how this exactly morphed into, a franchise business and what the franchise actually does.
Yeah. Yeah. So the parent company, again, Appetito, they're a global food producer. And so we produce food, we provide meals, and anywhere you look in the healthcare sector, whether it's the very, very young, the infirm, the older population, any type of intersection you see where food and health and nutrition becomes very important, you'll find Appetito. And Appetito, based out of Rhine, Germany, actually started the business, which was Wilshire Farm Foods. And Wilshire Farm Foods was kind of our first step into franchising.
I see.
And we have several franchisees in the United Kingdom that operate under the brand Wilshire Farm Foods.
I see.
So that business from there, the success of it, they thought, wow, we really would like to get to North America. And we started looking at, whether it was Canada first or the United States. And they actually found a company that was in Canada that they were able to purchase that was already doing B2B. We were already delivering foods to hospitals, to care homes, to nursing facilities and things of that nature. So it was just a natural expansion of the Wilshire Farm Foods business. So, Wilshire, Providence in the United Kingdom means nothing in North America. And so that's why they changed the name to Heart to Home Meals. And we've been franchising there since 2010. We have about 20 franchisees that have completely developed that market and have grown that market. And in 2019, we looked at expanding into the United States. That's really what we're looking for. And, it was kind of a proof of concept, right? When you look at franchising, one of the most important things is there a system? Is it viable? Is there support there? And does it resonate, right? And so coming into Boston, it was really our opportunity to figure out whether the American, population wanted to consume food like we were currently doing, whether or not delivery systems worked and things of that nature. So we operated in Boston with the thought of in 2020 starting to franchise. As you and I know, when COVID hit, actually being a meal service company, delivering meals into the homes of seniors, when nobody was even supposed to be in anyone's home, that really wasn't a good opportunity. So for the last 6 years, we've kind of redeveloped the business. We've been extremely successful in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, and just started franchising in 2024. We had our first franchisee actually just join us in 2025 in Raleigh, North Carolina. They had another franchisee in Naperville, Illinois, right outside of Chicago, that's joined us. And have a third franchisee that signed on today for Somerset, New Jersey.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So, I think you mentioned something that is, I think, at the heart of this of this business, which is, what you had mentioned before about, with the evolution of this business, and in Canada, it sounded like it was more B2B. But now with Heart to Home and what is being launched in the U.S., it sounds like you're going to direct to consumers, specifically to seniors. It sounds like is a big part of the market, correct?
Absolutely. That really is our mission. Our mission is to help seniors age in place and to be able to provide them healthy, nutritious meals. And that's really our focus. Anything and everything that we do, we look at through the lens of a 70-year-old individual. How would they like to do business? And that truly is what we do. So it's amazing out there, when you take a look at the silver tsunami, right, in the aging senior population that we have coming in.
I just heard that. I just heard it's been updated to 11,000 per day now, turning 65.
You're pretty in tune. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely 11,000 individuals turning the age of 65 every day. So it's going to be over 80 million people by 2040, about 1 in 5 Americans. And, I don't know what your thoughts are about it. I just don't think the healthcare system is set up to be able to support that. And, things kind of get difficult as you become a senior. And, being able to age in place and stay at home is what most seniors want. If I ask a senior where do they want to age and grow old, no one says send me to the senior citizen home. They all say I want to be here. I want to be here where I raised the kids, where I took care of the family. I went to church. I knew my neighbors. I just need to stay here. And unfortunately, for a lot of individuals, it's just not that simple. Life and aging isn't that simple. And they need assistance to be able to maintain their independence. Some days are better than others, right? As a senior, some days I'm okay. I can stand, I can cook, I can dice onions. But other days, I just need that help and that support. And unfortunately, the breakdown of the family unit that we've seen, I live in New Jersey and mom and dad live in Florida or vice versa. Being able to provide additional support for seniors is tough. And being able to give them healthy, nutritious meals, it really is a help to them.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, with my business, my franchise business I had was Shelf Genie, and it looked like it was just like selling wooden boxes to homeowners, retrofitting their cabinets so they could have their shelves pull out, but really what we were doing was, helping people live in their homes longer. And, when you can help someone that, wants to age in place, wants to be there as long as they can, because that's where they're comfortable. That's where they want to be. When you can make that happen, that just makes you feel really good. That's quite a mission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me a little bit more about the mechanics of the business. How does it work? Is the owner going out and driving around these meals? Are they making the meals? Like, how does this all work?
Yeah, what's the magic, right? Yeah. So I guess really starting off, the easy thing is talking about the food. We provide healthy, nutritious meals to seniors. We produce all the food in our factory in Ottawa, Canada. I have 2 chefs that are there that produce all the food, the menu, the sauces. I have 2 registered dietitians that keep my chefs in line, preparing exactly what they should. As you'd imagine, I have meals that are low in sodium, high in fiber. I have meals that are heart healthy. I have meals that are renal friendly. I have meals that are diabetic friendly. I have about 160 meals to choose from. And we kind of have a rotating menu where we'll have, probably 150 stable items, and we'll probably have 10 or 20 meal items that come on and off, depending on the season. When it gets to be September or August, there's pumpkin spice something on the menu. So we just really try to keep it fresh there. But all the meals are frozen. They're flash frozen, and not to geek out on you. We just ended up investing about $11 million in a new freezer system, a spiral freezer that allows us to plate the meals warm and not let them get down to temperature, and really freeze them hot. So I can freeze them in like 2.5 hours. What does that mean to you? My vegetables are crisp, they're fresh, they taste much better. My mashed potatoes, I don't get the ice crystals and things of that nature in the potatoes. They stay fluffy. So it really is a process, and it's a great process. So all the meals are frozen and made in Ottawa, Canada. So as a franchisee, I don't have stoves or ovens or hoods or fryers or anything of that nature to deal with. So I'm kind of in the food space. Maybe I'm food adjacent. I'm not having to deal with a lot of that. The meals from there are sent to Rhode Island, and we have a large facility in Rhode Island that has 300 or 400 pallets of food. And as a franchisee, you have a freezer or a depot. It's about a 400 square foot freezer, an industrial freezer, that you're storing all of your meals in. Excuse me. And we deliver it to you on a weekly basis. So you'll start out with an inventory. And as that inventory depletes, we'll continue to send you more meals as you order them. And so you as the franchisee, you really are the customer service and distribution is what you are. What I'm looking for is somebody that really is the mayor of their community. Somebody that's getting involved in the community. They're out there visiting the senior citizen homes. They're getting involved in the recreation facilities. They're working with case managers in hospitals as people are discharged from the hospital and returning or going back home without someone to look after them. It's a great opportunity for us to have introductions to those customers that would need food.
So when you mentioned, getting out in the community, I think you mentioned, did you say senior homes? As in like that where individual homes, or did you mean where more group homes?
Same or similar, right? You're looking at communities that are 55 and over communities. They take different formats. Some of them are, single family houses. Some of them are townhouses. Some of them are apartments where seniors are staying active. They're coming to the clubhouse. They're playing pool.
I see.
They're kind of socializing. It's a great opportunity for us to do what I call lunch and learn, where they come and they find out a little bit about health and nutrition, and they also are able to taste the food that we have for them. It's a great way to get to know the customers and for them to be able to sample your food. We will work with institutions where they maybe are more assisted living, where you've got somebody that the individual is living on their own, but they have somebody that comes in on a frequent basis to make sure that they're dressing their toileting and all of those things. So as a franchisee, you really just get involved with the senior community and look for ways to help out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's great. Yeah, those senior communities, those 55 plus communities where people are still active and living independently. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially where they can, if you can go to the community center there and, do that lunch and learn, present and let them know you're there. I know I just helped my parents move a couple months ago to another house, and they're a one-story house, a nice Rambler instead of the two-story house, and they're near my brother. And it's funny, my mom is just like, I don't feel like cooking anymore. And she loves cooking, but I think, especially when it's just her and my dad, if it's just a meal for two of them, it's just like, it's a lot to cook, right? And so, a service like this, even if it's not every single night, it seems like it would be really handy, to be able to have something that's easy and, nutritious and just really convenient.
Yeah. It's kind of tough, as a senior, you're talking about cooking for yourself or cooking for two people. It's not as easy as it used to be. A lot of trips to the grocery stores and things of that nature that seniors aren't able to do as frequently as maybe they would like to do. So yes, it is convenient for them to be able just to pop a meal in a microwave or put in an oven and heat it up. It's that age-old question, what's for dinner?
Yeah.
It kind of solves that for them.
Okay, so let's get back to the mechanics of the business here. So you order stuff, you have a freezer, the owner has a freezer at their location, and so the meals are all getting stored there. Obviously, what happens? What's the owner spending their time in the community? So, what does that look like for who's delivering the meals, and and what's that process like?
Yeah. So, I look at this really as three departments as a franchisee. You have a marketing department, and you, the franchisee, the mayor of the community, you're out there marketing, promoting the business. The next department really is a customer service. And you have a customer service representative that is answering phone calls when the phone rings. Most of our orders are placed over the phone. As I said,
okay. I was going to ask.
I'm a 70-year-old individual.
That makes sense.
They're not picking up their phone and ordering Grubhub or Uber Eats or anything of that nature. They like being able to pick up the phone and place the order. So you've got a customer service agent that's taking that order. The other person that you have in the business really is the driver. And that's the individual that is making the trip out to the senior, that's visiting with the senior, dropping off the meals. And the third piece really is logistics. It's somebody in the freezer actually picking the orders. And so it's kind of like the milkman of the 50s, right? A customer gets a weekly delivery. And I know as long as my order's in by Tuesday at noon, I can get my Wednesday delivery, to tomorrow. And so those are really the three big functions that take place in the franchise. And, the franchise, that's the tough thing about being a franchisee is, working in your business and not on your business. Too many times I see that franchisee gets sucked into, being the delivery driver, gets sucked into answering the phone. I can pay somebody, $14 to $21 an hour to do that function. I can't pay anybody, $20 an hour to run your business and to grow your business. And that really is from a franchisee. What I'm looking for is somebody to run that business. So the calls come in, the orders get picked, and, in the morning, the driver gets a pick sheet. And the driver jumps in the van that has his 50 or 60 boxes of meals that they're going to be delivering to deliver. And just like Amazon, as you would imagine, we have routing systems.
Nice.
We have a CRM system that allows them to to track their drivers, to take pictures of deliveries that maybe have left behind. And really, it's a very high-tech system in the back end to actually manage the business. As far as the driver is concerned, he or she really is the secret sauce of our business. That's really the value proposition. There are a lot of companies out there. You've heard of them, Factor Meals, HelloFresh, Blue Apron, the list goes on and on. But they really are not in the same type of business that we are. They produce the food, they take the order, but that customer really to them is nothing more than a label on a Federal Express box or UPS box. And, I order my HelloFresh and I get a 30-pound box of food and dry ice dropped off on my steps. And now, you just moved your parents. And now your 85-year-old father has to come outside, get to the porch, has to lug this 30-pound box in the house, unload it into the kitchen. And now I'm left with 20 pounds of dry ice.
Yeah.
It's just not a good value proposition.
Yeah, all the packaging. I don't know what to do with all this packaging now. I got to break all this down.
And with a lot of seniors, unfortunately, Alan, our drivers can be the only one that senior really sees all week. There's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of loneliness. And for our driver to be able to show up, come in the home, and break up that monotony for 5 or 10 minutes, it's a godsend. I'm convinced that as much as our food is great, there are a lot of people that order from us just because they love that connection that they have with a driver. And we encourage the driver to come in, ask about, the Seattle picture that's on the wall, and ask about the grandchildren, ask about the piano that's in the corner, and really take an interest in that senior. And that just goes so far. So as a franchisee, as much as you're in the food business or food adjacent, you're in the delivery business and customer service. You're there just to help seniors stay independent for as long as they can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Quick pause. Heart-to-home meals is early in the U.S. market. That's either a red flag or a massive opportunity, depending on who you are. That's exactly what I help you figure out. I work one-on-one with driven professionals to match them with the right franchise for their goals, skills, and their life. And my coaching costs you nothing. Book a call at athletetooowner.com/ready. Now back to Rick. And so let's go back to this. The drivers is this key person in the business. They're going to be able to interact with the homeowner and provide some engagement with them and, make them feel like, feel human, especially if they maybe don't see a lot of people throughout the week. But what are they doing with the actual food? They're not just dropping it off, right? They're not just leaving it at the porch. So what are they going to do for the clients?
Yeah, so they come into the senior's home. They actually come into the senior's home and they take the meals out of the boxes and put them in their freezers. They'll organize their freezers. If there are any meals from last week left over, they'll pull them to the front of the freezer. They'll put them in the freezer. All of our meals, as it can be put in the oven or microwave, with clear instructions. The driver can explain and go over the instructions with them and just show them what has been left or what delivery they received. So yeah, it really is more of a personal touch than it is just drop the food and run. Now, I will be honest with you. As many people that would like, you to spend a half hour and have a cup of coffee with them, they're the people that say, come on in. Yeah. Just drop it on the box and on the counter and what I owe you. Some people just want to, do a quick transaction like that. But a lot of them truly do enjoy the interaction of the driver. So we encourage the drivers to get involved and get to know the customers.
That's really cool. That's awesome. Wow. Well, that sounds like a great business. I mean, very, impactful for the lives of those people that you're serving, trying to live in their homes as long as they can, provide them with not just a healthy meal, but some form of, interaction as well. And
Absolutely.
Physically helping them put things in if needed into the freezer, or the fridge. That's great. Let's talk about, what the business looks like right now from, I know it's early on and it sounds like you're just, getting franchisees on board as of last year, but can you talk about, what early results you're seeing, whatever you can share for the home location or any of the franchisees?
Sure. As we all know, I'm kind of bound what I can and can't say about profitability and what's in our franchise disclosure document. What I will say is the early indications have been great. If you take a look at our franchise disclosure document right now, we'll show that we went from about 1.5 million in revenue last year in our corporate operation to just over $4 million in revenue this year in our corporate operation, and you're going to see another big increase. Why? What's driving that?
Yeah.
There's a big change right now. We're seeing it throughout the country where we're moving away from, treating people that are chronically ill with medications and just treating symptoms and just prescribing a drug for everything that's needed. And there's this huge movement called food is medicine. And people are starting to realize, what we put in our bodies really makes a difference. And so there's a lot of attention that has gone towards improving the lives of seniors or improving their health through providing them healthy, nutritious meals. And up until probably about 18 months ago, we were 100% private pay, customers paying out of their pocket. In the last 18 months, we've started to get involved with Medicare and Medicaid. And there's an insurance piece of the business. And we now probably in our Boston operation are probably 50% insurance and 50% private pay.
Wow.
There are case managers out there that, have individuals that they're managing their health plans for that just know that, giving them healthy food, is a much better option than just loading them up on more drugs. Yeah. And, they've seen the difference. When you start to look at insurance companies, that are managing an aging population, one of the things that they truly look at is readmittance, how often somebody comes from a hospital and then gets readmitted back into the hospital. And healthy food and nutrition is really what drives that causes them to rebound and go back in. So insurance companies now are willing to pay when people get out of hospitals to make sure that they have good quality meals to keep them from going through that process. So I'm seeing a big change in the country as far as the food is medicine movement. As far as your franchisees are concerned, Patrick Ignacio, who's our first franchisee in Raleigh, North Carolina, he and his wife are both from the Philippines, and they're compound pharmacists. They actually own a compound pharmacy in Raleigh, North Carolina. And as people were getting, returning back home from COVID, they were stopping in the hospitals to get their stopping the pharmacies to get their compound drugs. And they realized, wow, these individuals are going back home with no one to take care of them, no one to provide food for them. So it was just really an easy transition. So I really see some good signs of early adoption. If the corporate operation is anything that would indicate how franchisees might perform, I certainly think that, we've got good headwinds that way.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, that's really tremendous growth.
It is.
Just the first bump from 1.5 to
4 million.
I mean, that's incredible. Yeah. And it sounds like with the Medicaid, Medicare thing, like that could just really take off.
Absolutely. And I really think that's going to be a big driver there. When you start looking at different counties and you start looking at different states and how they manage their elderly population, there are a lot of what I call waiver programs that are out there. There's money that the counties have, that the states have to provide assistance to seniors, whether they're brain injury waivers, whether they're aging waivers, chronic illnesses. So, there's a lot of opportunity in that space. And as a franchisor, that's what we're there to do to help them out. I'm excited about Heart to Home Meals, just because we're not a franchise system that has to sell franchises to feed the mouths of our corporate staff and our hierarchy. I'm not counting on franchise fees to be successful and to run the business. As a matter of fact, our for the first group of franchisees, our $40,000 franchise fee, we've actually put that back into marketing for the franchisees to grow their business, not into just their general market, but their specific area. So
that's amazing. I've never even heard of that.
Our goal is that we want to get this launched. And our operation in Boston, Chris Webb, who's our president, came over from the United Kingdom and really launched this. Boston's on cruise control. Our corporate operation there is running fine. My major job and Chris's major job is to handhold this, what I call first freshman class of franchisees, our first 10 or 12 franchisees, is to really, spend time with them. Chris has been out to see Patrick probably 4 or 5 times. I've been out to see Jesse Singh, our franchisee in Naperville. The nice thing about Heart to Home Meals, if someone was to come aboard, they're not going to be the 500 or 600 franchisee that, maybe gets 2 minutes of the CEO's time at a convention. They're going to have a direct relationship with our corporate staff and with the executive leader team there. So I really see that as a huge benefit of what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. It sounds like there's definitely an opportunity for people that are looking to be, owner operator and get in there and be that mayor of the community and to be successful that way. Is there an option for people that are looking to, be semi-absentee, whether at the beginning or at, a couple of years in?
Yeah. Alan, as much as I'd love to say absolutely come on in, we'll take everybody, we really are going to be very pointed and selective about how we do this. And we truly want the first 12 franchisees that are in the system, my freshman class, to have success. And in any franchise system, you really need to have somebody that's involved, that has their blood, sweat, and tears into it. And at this time, I'm not really in a position where I want to take that chance at having to apologize that, Alan did a horrible job last year because, he just didn't have the right people there. I personally was a franchise owner and I lived that. I saw that, it's really tough to run a business from afar, or someone that's really close connected to, needs to be there in a day-to-day operation to see it grow.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think there's certain business models out there that just lend themselves to be able to be that kind of model. But there's probably more. There's a lot more that it really does require, an owner operator, someone to be in the thick of things and really paying attention as the business grows from the beginning.
I will say that, having 6 years to really get the proof of concept or the test kitchen in Boston has really taught us a lot. And I think really our concept originally was, one franchisee, one territory. And as we've grown the Boston operation, we've really seen how we can scale this. So the area that we're servicing right now is much larger than what a franchisee maybe would service. And it's very easy to, service, I've got a location in Boston, and I'm servicing Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut. If I were a franchisee and started in Atlanta, and had one territory, and I wanted to expand to my second or my third or larger distance, the nice thing is I'm not going to have to rebuild that infrastructure. I'm not going to have to build another cooler, build another call center, build another on and on. I can just leverage the existing infrastructure that I have. So really the ability to scale, that's kind of what we've done in Boston, is another huge opportunity with this brand.
Yeah, I think that's great. If it's not like you're having to build out a new brick and mortar location, you're just, sounds like you just be able to, leverage exactly what you have already and just have bigger routes, more vehicles, more
we
drivers.
Started out with one truck in Boston, and we have over 12 vehicles now that are on the road delivering. And as a franchisee, you're not going to start out delivering 5 days a week. You're going to start 1 or 2 days a week, but eventually it will get to 5 days a week, and that's when you start adding your second, your third truck. But certainly is a good growth plan.
That's fantastic. All right, so you were a franchise owner yourself, it sounds like, and you also helped other franchise owners in their business, growing their businesses and becoming better operators, right? What suggestions, what tips do you have for people going into Heart to Meals, for how to be successful in this business?
Yeah. Well, I think, in any franchise system, the number one thing to do is a marriage. We're getting into a relationship, and this is a long-term marriage. Really spend the time asking the right questions. Go through the franchise offering circular, and the most important thing that you'll have in the FDD in any franchise system is a list of their franchisees. Pick up the phone, call them, talk to them, ask them questions, and you're going to find people that are extremely successful. And you're going to find people that aren't successful in any franchise system. Start to do some research and figure out, am I more like the guy that's successful, or am I more like this guy that's not successful? And what type of time, be honest with yourself about where your strengths are. Your strength may not be in marketing. And if you realize that, you need to have a plan to have somebody there that can take care of that. Maybe you're not the tech guy. You need to have a plan of somebody that can step in those positions. So what I'd say for anybody in any franchise system is take the time to get involved with the existing franchisees, know them, talk to them, call them, and figure out what works and what doesn't work. Give yourself a realistic time frame. Anybody that tells you you're going to be, making money in day one and supporting yourself right away, run. It's just not like that.
Yeah.
Anything worth working for, you're going to have to put the time into it. And if you put the time and have the patience and you come in capitalized, it'll work out. The business will work out. You need to put the time and the effort into it, and you need to be committed to the process. Don't think that you're a franchisee that knows better. I've been in business for 30 years. What can they tell me? Do it the way the franchisor asks you to do it the first year. Give them 12 months, to figure out what works and what doesn't work. There's a reason that they do things the way they do in any franchise structure, in any franchise system, and be willing to leverage the network of existing franchisees once you come in. You're going to want to hear from me. You're going to want to hear from Chris about how to be successful and what to do. And then sometimes you're going to want to scratch your head and say, that just doesn't make sense to me. And you want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that's been in the business, somebody that can say, yeah, Alan, there are bears in that cave. Just don't go down that path. And there's a reason you don't go down that path. Any idea that you have, any brilliant idea, it's not. Somebody else has had that idea, and there's a reason it works and there's a reason it doesn't work. So be willing to leverage the people that are in the system. And truthfully, have the patience. Have the patience for the opportunity to come to light. And if you're dedicated and you work systems hard enough, there's a reason that they work. So that would be my advice to franchising.
That's great advice. What does an ideal candidate for heart to home meals look like? Yeah.
We're looking for somebody really that's mission led. Somebody that bleeds for the senior community. I spoke with one of my franchisees in Canada, and he said, Richard, there are all types of metrics and all types of levers and things that I can pull to make adjustments to my business. And he said, I really wanted to dial this thing up and get things working on all cylinders like I knew it could. He said, anything I touched just didn't work. And he said, and I stepped back, and he said, I just got involved in the business. I started caring about the people. I started listening to the customers. He said, and all of a sudden the business started to take care of itself. And so I'm looking for somebody that is willing to get involved in the business and let the business take care of itself. And, that really is what this business is all about. It's very profit driven, but it's also very mission oriented. And if my franchisee comes in with a thought of, how do I help people? How can I help my seniors? I think that's truly what's going to make them successful. You've heard the expression givers get, right? And the more you give, the more you get. And it's not about giving just because of the end. It's about giving because that's who you are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, purpose, focusing on purpose, what the impact is that you're having on your clients, on your customers, and your team, I think that goes a really long way, and it becomes more natural to serve everyone and to do a better job, and therefore have a more successful business.
Absolutely. And I love this company, what I've been involved with so far. I've been in other large corporations where, things kind of get siloed and, hey, that's marketing. That's not my job, or that's legal. That's not my job, or, not my job. I haven't run into anybody in this company that's like that. It's always, how can I help? What can I do? What's our mission? I'll stop my day to help you figure out how we need to resolve this. And it really is a culture. And I'm excited because, much like yourself, talking with potential franchisees, people are burnt out on the American corporation. People are looking for a place that they fit. People are looking to give back. People are looking for, there's got to be something else here.
There's got to be something else. Yeah, totally agree. One more question for you. When you do find that ideal client, that one who's mission driven and really cares and wants to make an impact, but also build a business that's profitable, of course, too. What does the support look like for them getting started, out the gate? What kind of support can they expect from you guys?
Sure. Well, once they sign in, it's like a baptism in fire. It's all hands on deck. We kind of have start a mobilization call on a weekly basis. And, we all own things. You'll have your list of things you own, and I have my list of things I own. And, there are probably 150 things that we need to accomplish to get, to get you up and going. So, I'll be on that committee. Chris, who is our president, will be on that committee. Our supply chain guy will be on that committee. Our marketing coordinator will be on that committee. And we literally on a weekly basis are going through our checklist with you to help you get up and running. Once you're almost there, we'll have you come to our corporate office in Boston, Massachusetts. We'll spend a week with you and run you through all of the training programs that you'll need to be able to go through. Everything from, how to place an order to, how does my mapping system work, to how do I get paid? How do I negotiate relationships with these insurance companies? What do I do? You'll go back to your hometown. You'll get your truck. You'll get your freezer, you'll get your location up and going, and you will have forgotten everything that you learned. Because of that, we'll send a trainer out to spend a week with you. And we'll
that's nice.
Have somebody on location with you as your business gets up and going and kicks off that first week to figure out how to place those orders and do those deliveries and things of that nature. Our customer service, our customer support representative is one of the most important positions. We actually send our call center manager from Boston out to you to spend 2 days with you, training your people. And, after you're up and going, it continues to go from there, meeting on a weekly basis to make sure that, you're getting all the support that you need. And we're following your numbers just like you are. We are a food producer and we're supplying you food. You're the last mile in my delivery system. And if you're not selling food, I'm not selling food. So it's in my best interest to keep you motivated and to keep business coming in your door. So we'll work with you to make sure that happens.
That's great. You touched on a key point. I think a lot of people probably just don't think about until they get back home from training, which is, you're drinking from a fire hose. There's just so much information coming at you at once. And the training is there, the information is there, but how much of it actually can sink in that period of time? Having your people go out and then help them open up, I think is really crucial in my opinion, because it's that learn by doing, figuring it out while you're doing it, you're trying it out on the job training is so much more impactful. I mean, you got to do both, but without that piece, it'd be very, very difficult, I think, for most businesses.
And you don't know what you don't know. And there are easy ways to solve problems if you just know the system, and not having somebody there to show you is tough.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Rick, I appreciate your time today. That was a wealth of information. Congratulations on the launch of this business. I'm very excited. I see a lot of potential in this business. I'm excited to send people over, especially those that want to be in this industry because it is growing and growing and growing. But maybe they don't want to be in home senior care, the way to be doing it. Or, hey, they like food, but they don't want to have a restaurant and be food adjacent. I like that too. So That's fantastic. So thank you for being here, Rick. I appreciate it. And congrats on being a franchise champion.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And thanks for your time.
Of course. Rick spent over 30 years watching franchisees succeed and fail from the inside. The ones who made it weren't the most experienced. They were the right fit for the model. That's the whole game in franchising. It's not about finding the hottest brand. It's about finding the right match for your skills, your capital, and the life you want to build. Maybe that's heart-to-home meals, or maybe something else. If you're driven and curious about what it looks like for you, that's exactly what I do. One-on-one. No cost to you. Book a call using the link in the show notes or head to athletetoowner.com/ready. I'm Alan Regala. helping you become a franchise champion. We'll see you in the next one.